week. We're back with another episode here, and this one is going to be talking about some football.
College and NFL, the game to talk about, at least to get it started. The good old national championship that was last night. Notre Dame versus Ohio State. And it went probably how everybody kind of predicted. I think Vegas had 75% of people were choosing Ohio State.
Yeah.
It's definitely understandable. Let me say my piece, because obviously I'm a Notre Dame fan.
Mm-hmm.
I was hoping for a better response than necessarily what they gave. But when you go down 21-7 at halftime to a team like Ohio State, you've made it extremely challenging to get back up the hill. I mean, you have built a mountain in front of you. And there were things that I thought they were not adjusting to, and I think they did a better job in the second half. But I was very frustrated watching an Ohio State offense that we knew was good. Okay? We know they're good. We know they have a lot of strengths. They have a lot of talent. But they were doing whatever they wanted on offense. There's nothing that Notre Dame was doing to stop them. And to me, it's Notre Dame runs a lot of man, and they were still doing it last night. The challenge is, and this is what I think they started to somewhat make adjustments on, even though it cost them at the end of the game, was their D-backs are not good enough to stay with the wide receivers. And Ohio State has some solid wide receivers that are very, very good, and they were just picking them apart. And so in that case, my opinion, I'm not as football knowledge as you are, obviously not as much as Freeman is, but you move to a zone and you try to maintain. Every time that they would go man, the other challenge was you saw Ohio State's quarterback would be left wide open to basically do whatever he wanted, and he would go run for 10, 15 yards, which he's not necessarily known for doing that. But if you've got a wide open field, and your backs are against the quarterback, and you're trying to match up, it just wasn't working. So, well, I do give Notre Dame credit that they actually started to make a nice run in the second half, and they were a touchdown away, well, eight points away from tying the game up at the end of the game. And that's a lot of credit to them that they stayed with it, because I think they were down 31-7 at one point, and they started to make it quite a pretty clean and aggressive comeback on offense. I mean, the first drive of the game was perfect. It was an absolute perfect drive for the most part. Yes, they relied heavily on the quarterback to Leonard in order to run the ball to get those first downs, because they kept getting to 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1. But after that, it's like they couldn't really get anything going until the second half, and I don't know. So all the credit to Ohio State. They were by far the better team. I think that was well seen in the game. Again, I give credit to Notre Dame for coming back and at least making it a game, because I was quite frustrated going in. And I mean, Ohio State scored right away, right after the second half started. So it's just a struggle on defense. But all the credit to Notre Dame as well for sticking with it. And I think they proved, hopefully, to the naysayers out there that they were a good team and they deserve to be there. I mean, there's a lot of people that were putting them down, saying they didn't play enough strong people and all this garbage. And they gave Ohio State a little bit of a heartache there at the end, and because of a blown coverage and a launch down the field, that's what gave Ohio State the extra mile to get over the hump.
Yeah. It was a tough one for you, huh?
It was definitely tough.
Yeah. Ultimately, I just want to take it back to the point, kind of what you hinted at. Notre Dame relies a lot on man coverage, and with the talent they've been playing this year, that man coverage is something that they've honed in on and been able to, successfully implement against these teams because of the difference in talent level. I mean, their corners are good corners, but they're like 4-star corners. When they go up against Ohio State, those are 5 stars, baby.
Yep. And I didn't think, and not to interrupt you, but I didn't think that Ohio State's wide receivers were really doing anything special.
Yeah.
They were just making good cuts and they were getting open.
Well, ultimately, what I saw in Ohio State, man, was the difference in the offensive coordinator's plays.
Yeah.
I mean, his play calling, not just, the flashy ones like the fake reverse to get Smith that touchdown wide open. And, there's a lot of other plays to get, the running backs spring free and stuff. But just when he was play calling it, it's like he was thinking chess. He was thinking, I'm going to do this play, I'm going to do this play, and that'll set up this third play that Notre Dame's going to be prepping for the first two plays, and they're behind the ball. Yeah. And that's kind of how the game felt offensively for Ohio State the entire game. Is just that Notre Dame's defense was just a little bit behind the ball. Yeah. They had the talent somewhat to be able to compete, to be able to match up to a certain degree. But it's just, the offensive play calling and the specific times they were calling plays just kept Notre Dame offbeat on defense. Yeah. I would definitely say, though, the talent level was very evident, especially when it comes to the secondary. And then the offensive lines for really both teams. I mean, Notre Dame's offensive line wasn't bad. No. There was some series that they had where it was just, bad throws, poor execution here and there, but it wasn't necessarily like offensively they were super outmatched. Right. So that goes to your point that Notre Dame did fight. They fought the entire game. They especially, tried to fight back in the third and fourth quarters. And I give credit to them, but this Ohio State team was just too stacked. And, like you said, that first drive, I kind of saw whenever they went down and scored, I was like, oh, okay, this might be a game. And, Leonard was running all over. I'm like, wow, okay, so if he's going to have one of these games, but then he went to the sideline, they were talking about how he threw up. And I was like, uh-oh. No, this ain't sustainable. Even if they had the opportunity to continue giving him the ball in organized quarterback keeps, quarterback runs, just him throwing up, me as a coach, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, the 12 runs or whatever it was. How many do you remember?
I think it was 8 or 9.
8 or 9 runs?
Yeah, because they had said that they try to keep him at about 20 per game, and he had 8 or 9 in the first drive. Yeah. And like you said, that's just not sustainable. Now, he did say, he mouthed it when he was on the bench, and the announcers did say that he landed on the football, and he thinks that's what made him upchuck, I guess is what they used to call it. I don't know. I mean, I think it's probably a part of that, but also, that's a lot of pressure on a quarterback to run that much and to try to get. Again, they're not easy first downs because you're having to plow through people in order to get them.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of whether he threw up due to a conditioning, overuse, or it was because he landed on a ball, that still speaks to he's taking hits every play that he's running the ball. And, in my opinion, me being a head coach, this is the last game of the year, I'm a little bit more ruffian where I would say, well, we still got to put our neck out. I don't care if you throw up, get back out there. Yeah, I remember whenever I was in high school, there was a game I had where I probably had 8 tackles already by the third quarter. And I think it was against Monrovia, which is one of those teams that just hands it off every single play. They throw it maybe once or twice a game. And me playing middle linebacker, I just kept getting hammered down the middle by this 6'2", 300-pound fullback. And in that game around third quarter, I was doing good. I was making tackles. I was bringing the big boy down, but I had thrown up all over the place on the field, and it was right before a play happened. So I throw up, and then I put my mouthpiece back in, and you keep going. Yeah, that's kind of the ruffian attitude that I would have towards it. Yeah. Being a big level, being different position, being the quarterback, someone you're gonna need the entire game. Maybe you do put the brakes on a little bit to make sure he can play the entire game, but still I would have that mindset of we're gonna need you, we're gonna need your legs if we're gonna have a chance in this. And I mean, you could tell they started to hone it back. They started relying on his arm a little bit more. Yeah.
Which was not working. Yeah. I mean, that was the challenge with his passing game, at least in the first half. It wasn't even that he was getting a lot of pressure, because he was a few plays here and there, but he was throwing short, throwing at their feet. They were not good he was not there. His arm was not there in the first half. He started connecting it in the second half, but first, definitely not.
And the thing is, with the Ohio State defense, like, although they weren't getting pass rush well, their run defense was looking very good.
Yeah.
And so Price wasn't really helping him out. Love wasn't really helping him out too much. So, I mean, if you're going to be running the ball, it would have had to have been through the quarterback, and they weren't running it successfully to be able to open up a lot of those passing lanes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just like any game, which we're going to be getting into a lot of games today, but just like any game, there is many different factors into why a team loses, why a team wins. And for Notre Dame, there was just a lot of things that weren't going their way, especially in that first half. I would even argue in the second half, too. I would say that Ohio State don't get me wrong, Notre Dame was still fighting. They were doing what they needed to do, but it almost seemed like Ohio State took their foot off the gas for a couple of seconds here and there on defense, especially like with the Great House reception and broke 2 tackles to run it into the house. That's like something that's very uncharacteristic for Ohio State defense. But ultimately, congratulations to Ohio State. They made that $20 million roster worth it.
Yeah.
So that they definitely, like we've been saying, like I've said since the beginning of the college football playoffs, Ohio State is the team that should win it all. And I'm not saying like they're the only $20 million team out there. There was a bunch that are paying players a good amount, but they definitely had the stacked roster. And, even just having the 2 running backs running over 1,000 yards each, that's kind of – and then with the wide receivers, what's his name? Egbuka, I think. Mm-hmm. He's obviously going to be in the NFL. I mean, he's a dog. And then Smith, only being a freshman, he'll probably stick around Ohio State for a couple more years. Yeah. But he obviously is going to be like the Marvin Harrison Jr. in the NFL. He's going to be drafted a top 5 pick probably. He's going to go to some team and then break rookie records. I mean, they got a stacked team, and their lines are always good. The only real question that I had with them was the quarterback, and he came out and played too.
Yeah,
so
did pretty well. Yeah, defensively, I thought they did quite a bit, but I thought they would actually get more pressure on Leonard.
Yeah, no.
And I thought the line did a pretty good job
of Notre
protecting. And the interesting part was I think it was the right tackle for Notre Dame was either a rookie or he hadn't really played the entire season and he had to fill in for somebody. Yeah, and I thought he did a pretty good job.
Yep, I think like the starter like torn his shoulder or something, torn his bicep. I forget what it was, but they started him, and that was all what the pregame was talking about. Is he going to be able to guard Sawyer? Is he going to be able to keep him off the quarterback? And he did a great job.
He did. Yeah, the only thing I would question, and I think maybe Freeman will go back and look at it, and it's hard to say. In the moment, you think it's the right decision, but when you kick the field goal, when you're down by so much, it makes you wonder, why not just go for it? They missed the field goal, so that automatically kills any momentum that you had. That kicker had been doing poorly all season because of a groin injury and then did really well in the playoffs. So I don't necessarily fault him for doing that because you would think, well, we can get 3 on there, and if we can get a stop, we might be able to get a little momentum that way. But when you're down by so much, which I don't remember what it was at the time, but it was a lot more than, it was 3 scores, I think.
Yeah.
I wonder if you just go ahead and go for it. Put the pressure on. You've been picking up a few 4th downs, a lot of close 3rd downs at the time. Why not do it? But again, it's one of those you look back at it and you wonder. It's easy to look back and say, well, maybe we should have done something different there. But ultimately, played out probably how it was supposed to, and it was fun to watch. Yeah. Towards the end.
Let's keep in mind Notre Dame did try and fake that punt, and Ohio State was very prepared for it. And so a lot of times when it comes to decisions like that, I just think like me being, I've had the coaching perspective of things. One factor that people who are just watching don't get, they don't necessarily understand, is the vibes. Yeah. Like what the vibe of your team is, how the morale is. Like sometimes you want to go for it because you don't have faith in your defense getting a stop, just of how they're bickering on the sideline, or maybe there's one of those players, who didn't necessarily have a bad play on the drive, but he comes over and you can just see like He's staring off in the distance.
Just frustrated. Yeah.
So there's just little things like that people wouldn't understand. And so I'd never fault someone in a situation like that. Like maybe he felt the need to kick that field goal because he wanted to be able and rely on his defense. He thought that they were doing really well, and he thinks that having them start in a strong position, maybe it would give him a better stance instead of if you went for it on fourth down, it was a turnover and the offense is coming on with that momentum.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just me playing devil's advocate. Obviously, I don't know, but there's always factors like that to consider.
Yep. And that punt is a great example, too, of, in my opinion, just get the offense out there and go for it. I mean, you probably could have seen it ahead of time that Ohio State was not going to fall for it. I think they moved people even on the defense to just be prepared for that. So they probably should have seen that, hey, they're not falling for this. We either need to make it, call a timeout and reset what we're going to do, or actually punt it. And, it just didn't happen.
Yeah, I'm never really a fan of fake special team formations and going into fake plays and stuff like that. I think you should just march your offense out there. And ultimately, when it comes down to it, if your offense who is dictating where the ball is, you can give it to a running back, they can grind out 3 yards, a special block, you can pass it, you can shuffle it out, whatever. If you're the one that's dictating where the ball is on the field and you have faith in your offense to be able to pick it up, then that's just purely willpower in a lot of situations. Versus if you're running a fake punt, you're bringing on players onto the field who aren't, they don't have the momentum of the game swinging.
Exactly.
So it's just a little bit different.
Yep. But like we said, overall, good game, great season. I think the 12-game playoff was great. I thought it went really well. We'll see if they make any adjustments next year. May not be next year, might be the year after. But and then the challenge is you get the transfer portal, so we have no idea what teams are going to look like.
Dude, that transfer
next
portal,
year.
man. I just heard someone talking about the transfer portal, and they were like, just this last summer or whatever, there was enough players in the transfer portal to be able to fill in an entire conference of teams. There's like over 1,500 people in the transfer portal. And I like it because that gives teams like, Indiana, for example, that gives them the opportunity to go out and basically have a transfer player at every starting position and be able to compete with all these people who are coming together who maybe didn't have opportunity to do so or the situation to do so in other places.
Yeah. Well, both quarterbacks last night were from the transfer portal.
Yeah.
So that tells you something, that they feel like they can find a better fit for them somewhere else, and the teams agree, so they bring him in and they try to make it work.
Yeah, here's the thing. When you're an 18, 19-year-old kid, you don't know anything anyways, so you might just be committing to USC because it's on the beach side and there's a lot of hot girls that go there. And then junior year rolls around, they bring in another freshman quarterback who's starting over you, and you're like, I don't care about the girls anymore. I want to win a bowl game.
Yeah, I want to play football.
So, there's a lot of different situations. I like it. Now, the whole money thing, they're gonna have to get that under control. With some of these people, like, even demanding a Ferrari for you to come and talk to me about coming to your schools. It's like, okay, like I said just a second ago, 18, 19-year-olds don't know anything. They're freaking stupid. And when you start saying, putting their value in their own hands, I'm worth $1 billion. What are you talking about? I'm gonna change your school forever. Yeah. It's like, okay.
Yeah, and but like we've talked about in previous podcasts, I think the point is you make that a possibility and then you adjust as time goes along. Because you're not going to get it right the first time.
And that's what they're doing, yeah.
There's no way for you to. You're not going to be able to see all these different things that could potentially change what you're really meant for it to be. And I think then you start putting, okay, you can't do, X, Y, Z or whatever it is. You just need to make the adjustment. So... But I like the opportunity for the players to be able to make some compensation, but, to what extent? And that's always the question.
And I definitely think you need to put caps for, I would even say positional caps, but even just a salary cap for the team so that it doesn't get out of hand with these boosters donating money to these schools. And, Ohio State has a $20 million to put towards its roster, but... Northern Illinois only has 8 million. It's like, okay, obviously there's going to be
grab a few more people.
There's going to be a not a balance of power in college football if that happens. It'll turn into baseball.
Yeah, I just don't want to lose the sight of the pure game. I think that nobody wants to take away from that. I think it's, you want it to be like, and I'm always thinking the movie Moneyball, where you had basically Brad Pitt's character basically said you've got rich teams and you've got poor teams, and then you got 50 feet of crap, and then there's us. We're down there. It's like you don't want to. They were able to do something in their season that nobody had done at the time, and that was the longest streak in baseball history. But you don't want to take away from the pureness of the sport, and I think money can easily do that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's enough for Notre Dame, Ohio State. Shout out to Marcus. I know he's very happy with this victory that he's gotten. So congratulations. All right. Let's move into the NFL. So, NFL's been pretty solid this year, in my opinion. And these playoffs, I mean, look, if there's an argument for a script in the NFL, they're sticking to the script. So, we're about to be having, the Chiefs going up against the Bills again. You're about to be having the New Age Commanders. What? The Commanders? Who expected they were just trash last year. Absolute hot garbage last year. Like Browns level garbage. And they're going up against the Eagles with Saquon Barkley, the new kid in town from the Giants. Like one of the most popular players, most popular storylines in the NFL. So there's a script. And I believe that they're sticking to the script. All right.
I don't know if there's a script. But if it was written, it would be written very well, because this has been the last 4 games were all good.
Yep.
Great games to watch. All kind of came down the last minute. Every team was pretty much in it for the most part.
Yeah, I think except for one.
Just one, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah, yeah. So I say we start with the Texans-Chiefs game.
That's the one.
So I mean, listen, I don't want to take away any greatness from Patrick Mahomes.
I do. Let's talk about it. Because I'm not saying it's his fault. Because I don't necessarily think it is. There was one play that definitely was him, and I didn't appreciate seeing that whatsoever from a top-notch player.
You talking about when he rickied like Boys in the Hood off on the sideline?
It's flopping in soccer. It's flopping in basketball. Maybe they need to put a new rule in for football, because that was insane. The guy barely touched him.
He didn't get the penalty though.
No, I know, but that's what he was striving for, because he got it 2 other times throughout the entire game. Listen, on the 2 penalties, I know it's not make or break for the game, but what it does do it could be, and that's the thing. And each time it allowed the Chiefs to keep driving the football, and they scored both times. So you get 2 penalties that are roughing the passer, and neither one of them were roughing the passer. When you watch the replays, they showed them multiple times. You can go back and watch them online. They weren't. And you even had the announcers, Troy Aikman, flip down on one of them. He's like, "Oh, come on. Like, it's ridiculous." And I heard it said, Rich Eisen said it on his show, if it is a 15-yard penalty and it's roughing the passer or something like that, those should be able to be reviewed. Not that you can throw the flag. Okay, not that the coach can throw the red flag and they review it that way. It should be reviewed in New York, as you review sometimes, and they look at it quickly, and they say to the ref, "Okay, you guys need to pick that flag up." It's that simple. Yeah. It really is that simple. And I'm not saying it because it's against Patrick Mahomes. That's for anybody that happens throughout the entire season. Because those type of plays, you add a first down and then 15 yards on top of that, you're talking about a 25-yard play right there, and that puts people in a really good position to score. And it's just not fair to the other teams when you see that it was not an actual penalty.
Yeah. I mean, stuff like that happens in a lot of different games. Refs are never going to be perfect. It just so happens that there's been a trend lately of these not-so-perfect refs being officiating in the Chiefs games.
Yeah.
And it almost feels like Mahomes is starting to get a little bit of that Brady effect, man.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the Steelers, the Colts, whoever. Whenever they'd go into, Foxborough, Massachusetts to play freaking the New England Patriots, you knew you weren't just playing against Brady. You weren't just playing against Gronk. You weren't just playing against their great defense. You're playing against the refs, too.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times Brady would get a little smack on the head or something. I mean, they literally created penalties for Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Like,
he was the reason, yeah.
And so it's starting to feel like that a little bit in Kansas City. Now, I mean, look, Patrick Mahomes is a great. He 3 championships he's already won, right?
3, yeah.
Yeah.
He's going for his 3rd in a row this time. Yeah,
Yep.
That's great.
And he won 1, then he lost 2 years in a row, one of those being to Brady. And then
he's won the last 2 years.
Yep. And so, I mean, he's a great. Travis Kelce over there, he's like his Gronk. They're great. And just like the New England Patriots, the defense for some reason just always seems to be good every year. Like they figure it out. They got one pillar, just like how freaking New England used to have like Vince Wilfork for a stretch. They got Chris Jones right now. And then they throw in other great pieces around them. Some of them stay longer than others, but they figure it out defensively. And just like the Patriots, it seems like some years their defense are winning the games for them instead of the offense. Mm-hmm. This seems to be like one of those years.
Yeah, for sure.
Kansas City Chiefs offense hasn't looked amazing. Mm-hmm. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, he's getting all the penalties nowadays. His actual offensive play doesn't look amazing. I mean, he's missing throws here and there.
Yes.
Travis Kelce hasn't necessarily been like a top 5 tight end, I would even say. He's been performing here lately in the postseason, but
regular season, yeah.
Regular season, he was kind of, just there. He was a good starting tight end. He wasn't like a superstar.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're figuring it out, and the refs are helping them a little bit. Now, the Texans, they're a younger team. I mean, C.J. Stroud is amazing, but I almost feel like, just like when teams would go into New England and play New England, it seems like in this playoffs with at least the Texans, it's like they went into the Chiefs Stadium and it was like, okay, we're going to play down to the level of these teams that go to the Chiefs and play. It's not like what I think's going to happen in this upcoming game, which we'll talk about in a bit with the Bills. Like, Josh Allen has it out for the Chiefs.
And he should.
He's going to be showing up PO'd, like ready to play. Yeah. You've ruined my season for the past 3-4 years. Yeah. I'm ready to go. C.J. Stroud, on the other hand, is like he's fresh. He just got here. He's happy for the success. Yeah. And, that also reminds me of another team we're going to talk about here in a bit with the Lions, where it's almost like past couple of years when the Lions are doing really good, everyone's like, oh, man, the Lions are coming up. Like, they're on top. We lost. We didn't get all the way, but, hey, we're excited to be here. Yeah. And now it's like we should be going to the championship. We should be winning the Super Bowl, and we're losing. What are we doing? Right. How are we going to continue? That's where they're at now with it. So C.J. Stroud's just on his way there. He's on his come-up right now, but he's not to the level of the Josh Allen and the Bills where it's like, can we just get over this hump?
Yep. Well, I have been to Arrowhead Stadium. Yeah. So I went several years ago. Some friends and I went. Marcus, we went to when the last game of Andrew Luck when he played for the Colts, and I think it was either the divisional championship or the conference championship. I don't remember which one it was. I think it was the team went to go play the Patriots. So I think that was the year he lost. But it's not an easy place to play, and I think it is an intimidating place to play. The fans are extreme. They're very extravagant. I'll never forget, it had snowed a blizzard in that area when we went. I was walking to my seat, and I got hit in the head with a snowball. I look up, and I see a Chiefs fan. He's pointing right at me, and I knew this is going to be a really long game.
How far away was he?
About 6 rows up.
Oof. Yeah. I mean, large target, so easy to hit that mark. But
and at that point, I don't even. Well, yeah, I was wearing a Colts hat. I was trying to think if he even knew I was a Colts fan, but. It's intimidating to walk into a stadium that Mahomes has been leading the charge for many years now.
And they've been winning.
And they win. And they win. And I thought the Texans actually played a pretty good game. I mean, it was pretty well-rounded. They held the defense Chiefs offense the best that they could. Yeah. I think if you continue to get pressure on Mahomes as much as you can, it really disrupts the way that he plays. You got to get pressure on him, but also contain him at the same time, because he was still able to figure out a couple open spaces, and then he's able to get that, the touchdown pass to Kelsey, where he was falling as he's throwing the ball. I mean,
he's good.
It's a great play. It's a phenomenal play, and you can't take that away from him. But I understand why teams walk in there and it's like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be tough. Now, is the Bills game, is it in Buffalo?
It shouldn't be.
No, it's Chiefs for the number one.
Chiefs have the best record.
So they got to go there again and try to figure out how to win the game. Wow.
But, that's what I'm talking about, though. Like, this has been the case for how long now, where Josh Allen has to go into Arrowhead to try and fend off the champs.
Yep.
And I think it's to the point which we can go ahead and talk about the Bills versus the Ravens matchup. Yep. It's just like Lamar going into Buffalo. It's like, in certain areas, now Lamar is kind of different where he's at, because Josh Allen's fed up with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's been 3-4 years where Patrick Mahomes is gatekeeping him.
Yeah.
With Lamar Jackson and the Ravens are like just now getting on top. And Lamar Jackson's been around for a while, but what have his obstacles been? The Steelers, even though we've sucked for the past 8 years, for some reason, what was his record the last time we talked about it? It was like 1-8 before he just beat us these last 2 times. So I think it's like now 3-8 or something. But it's the Steelers rivalry. That's like his gatekeeping. Like, man, we have to beat these dudes. And, now he gets up there. He takes on Josh Allen in Buffalo. Obviously, not just him. I love the tweet that the Ravens put out about Mark Andrews before the game, where he's out in sleeveless shirts and they're like, snow won't impact him or something like that. Yeah, okay. That aged pretty poorly.
Yeah.
But Lamar Jackson, man, puts the ball on the ground, I think once.
Definitely once.
And then he throws the interception. Just missing throws here and there. And they competed.
Yeah.
If he wouldn't have messed up on those couple of plays, if Andrews wouldn't have dropped the ball like 2 or 3 times, whatever it was, if Derrick Henry would have, broken just a couple more tackles here and there, that's definitely a victory. But it didn't happen, and that's what I'm talking about. Same as the Texans over there playing with the Chiefs. Just a couple of things here and there, and that's all the difference that comes with what is your situation with this team, and who's the home field advantage.
Yep.
He probably walked into that stadium very wide-eyed. And now, since he felt what that pain is like, next year, if they end up meeting again, it's going to be a little bit different. Yeah. And I think that's how it's going to be with Josh Allen.
Yeah. I think it's different, in my opinion, with Lamar Jackson. Everything he did in that game, and I say everything, obviously I don't mean everything, but was very uncharacteristic to what he did for that entire season. So lots and lots of mistakes, lots of mental errors, lots of thrown balls that he wouldn't have thrown naturally. Yeah. And I think 4 turnovers total for the entire game, something like that. I don't remember the exact stat, but I think that was around 4, which they hardly ever turned the ball over. He had 4 interceptions, I think, the entire season, and he threw 2 or 3 that game.
Yeah.
So, you're talking about uncharacteristic behavior. And I think, to me, I don't think it has anything to do with the Bills. I think it has everything to do with what's going on in his head.
Yeah.
He knows he wants to win a championship. He knows he has a team that he feels like can get there. It almost reminds me of the Colts when they used to have phenomenal teams, and then they would play the Patriots or somebody else in the playoffs, and it's like, who is this team?
Yeah, they showed up wide-eyed, man.
It's not even the same people that you expected to be out there.
They nervous.
Yeah, and they're just... But you would think that he has enough seniority in the league to be able to get over that, because that's the thing where it's like, for whatever reason, he's not, and I don't. At this point, you wonder if he ever will.
Well, that's the thing. I believe it's not necessarily seniority, because I look at like Russell Wilson. He's a senior. Look how he's played, even not just the playoffs, the last like 4 or 5 games of the season. I don't think age is the difference. I think it's your situation. What has happened to you in your career? Just like in life, man. Like, we can take life lessons from this. If you're complacent, it doesn't matter how old you get. You're still going to be complacent later on. But if life has been beating you down, if there is that hump you just can't get over, and like, you're complacent the first couple of times it happens, but you show up again. If it's that same hump, when it comes to the NFL now, if it's that same hump like Josh Allen and these Chiefs, I mean, just look at how they played the Chiefs in the regular season. They treated that like a playoff game. Like, Josh Allen got that game-winning touchdown,
sure,
running the ball for 40. Like, he's like, I'm not losing to this team again.
Yeah.
And I think that's how he's definitely going to approach this game.
Yeah.
But with Lamar Jackson, like I said, what have his hurdles been? Well, they've been winning a decent amount of games, but if they get stopped, it's a stop here against the Steelers, or it's a stop here against the Chiefs, or it's a stop here again. It's always somebody different. It's never like, okay, we earned our point all the way to this road, and we keep going up against this wall. Like, how do we break through this wall? Whatever, that wall is. And I think if you actually have a specific circumstance, it helps a lot. But with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, it's always been easy to be able to pinpoint a different reason why. Whether it be a different team, whether it be the defense wasn't doing too hot, they didn't have the running back, our wide receiver play is not good, or Lamar Jackson himself isn't doing yada yada. There's always a different reason why. With like Josh Allen, it's like they had the stacked defense like a year ago, even, because they lost some people in the offseason. They've had the wide receivers. They had Stephon Diggs. I mean, they've had running backs, but it's always the Kansas City Chiefs. That's that one thing. It's not even necessarily us. It's just them. They're just so good. How do we get past that? Yeah. And so it's just a little bit different mentality-wise. And I think Lamar Jackson, him losing to the Bills the way that they did, and him, like, basically it being his fault, like, his whole team came together. They did what they were supposed to do. Sure, the defense could have played against Josh Allen a little bit better, but when you're playing the top line of, that was a heavyweight fight. That's a heavyweight fight right there against a heavyweight offense. You can't expect your defense to shut them out. Yeah. You can't expect the defense to hold them to just 14 points, 20 points, whatever. Yeah. And so you have to be able to respond. And I think Josh Allen, this might be the time in his... I mean, if you watch the press conference after the game, he was like cussing and stuff. He was like, man, crap, frustrated, man. Yeah. He was... That's the first time I think I've ever seen Lamar Jackson like genuinely PO'd. And it wasn't like at a situation, it was at himself. Yeah. So I think next year, especially if Derrick Henry comes back with him for another year, I mean, I wouldn't want to play him in the playoffs, because I think next year he's going to have this moment caught in his mind, just like Josh Allen has the Kansas City Chiefs, that 13 seconds, that 13-second drive Patrick Mahomes had to beat him. He's going to have that on replay all season up to this matchup they have coming up. Lamar Jackson's going to have that with the Buffalo Bills going forward.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to keep piling on him, but I do have to think that when you look at the full depth of the Ravens roster, it's not coaching.
No.
They have a good offense. They have all the pieces they need on the offense, in my opinion. Yeah. They've got, I would say, almost all the pieces they need to really do well on the defensive side.
Yeah.
And
they're stacked.
So it only comes down to one person.
Yeah.
And that translates. That's the importance of, it's in business and life and family. When one person is not connected and one person is consistently in their own head struggling, it's going to translate to everybody else that's on that field. And I think that's what happened. So, I don't know. I understand what you're saying, that you may not want to play him next year, but I think there's a lot of people who are going to be like, I don't think he can get over the hump. I don't think it's going to happen.
I just look at it this way. With the talent that he had, that talent's not going away. But when there's no more excuses, when there's no more reasons why, when the only thing that's left to look at is yourself in the mirror, that's when changes get made.
Yeah, well, that's the way it is this now. So you hope that he takes the offseason to get that in his head. Okay, I need to be better. I need to lead my team when I'm out there.
Yep. And like I hate to compare it to him, but it's kind of like Russell Wilson and the Steelers. Like, we're playing phenomenal. And in my opinion, I know it's going to sound crazy, we have all the pieces. Like, we literally have every piece necessary. Sure, we could probably use another wide receiver,
yeah.
but we have George Pickens. Calvin Johnson isn't, or Calvin, not Calvin Johnson.
Calvin Johnson. That's an old school name there for you.
Calvin Austin isn't bad. I mean,
Still the height.
yeah. Van Jefferson, he wasn't bad, but the thing is, there's always different excuses. I mean, we had Najee Harris, we had Pat Freiermuth. Our offensive line isn't horrible. We had decent pieces across the offensive line.
Yeah. But the challenge is that's Russell Wilson right now. Russell Wilson, when he played for the Seahawks and they did win a championship,
young and killing it, and there was no excuses.
Yep.
If you lost, it would have been your fault.
It's a very same thing that I'm seeing with the Ravens, where when Russell Wilson was on the Seahawks, he had every piece he needed on the offense. He had a very, very strong defense, and in his case, he was able to pull it together, and they won a championship and went the second year, lost to the Patriots, of course, but he got his ring. And I think Lamar is there to where he's got all the pieces, and he just needs to, 1 year, he just needs to figure it out.
Well, there's that other team, which this year that other team was the Buffalo Bills, whose chip on their shoulders is a little Buffalo Bills. My bad. The Buffalo Bills, whose chip on their shoulder was just a little bit larger this time around. So he's, like I said, I would hate to be the one facing the Ravens next year around. I think now, because I thought it was going to be the Ravens' year this year.
Well, you said it last podcast. Yeah.
Now I'm going with Buffalo, man. Because I think Josh Allen's going to make it out of that Chiefs game.
You said it already, and this is what everybody's looking forward to, is what's going to happen in that game. Because, was it 3-4 years ago, the Chiefs and Bills gave us probably the best playoff NFL game I have ever seen.
It was crazy.
Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Now, I think the Bills have a better defense now than they did then. So I think they're going to be able to figure Mahomes out. I'm hoping that they do. I guess I shouldn't be cheering for anybody, but I think that,
why not cheer for somebody?
I think in this case, I think you're exactly right. The Bills are going in with a different mindset. They understand what they've been able to do all season. They've had a really strong performance from Josh Allen, who is doing it on both sides to where he's passing really well. He's also running really well. Not that you want to necessarily count on that, but he's been very effective with the ball, and not necessarily was that his strength, I think, before. I mean, he was hit and miss. But I think they can get it done and they can go see themselves in the Super Bowl.
Like I said, I think it just comes down to mentality. And I think that's what's going to get them over the edge. Just the same way how the Chiefs beat these teams by basically big brothering them. Like, hey, we won the championship last year. We might be on the same level talent-wise, but we're going to etch this out in the end. Like, it almost feels like that's how they've been winning their games.
Yeah.
I think this game comes down to Josh Allen's like, no, I don't care who you are. This is my year. I'm tired of you. I'm tired of you always being in my way. Mm-hmm. It's not like, oh, these are the champs. We're going to have to go in here again and hopefully it goes right this time around.
It's different.
Like, you can tell that he has a different mentality going into it this time around.
But I am going to say, if the Bills are watching, which they should be, if they're not, they should be.
Come on, Josh Allen. Turn it on.
You need to penalty free as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, good luck with that.
I know it's tough. I know that, but don't give any reason for them to throw a flag. And no extra celebrations. No.
You can celebrate.
Extra. Well,
don't listen to him. Celebrate.
Well, I even watched the game last night between the Fighting Irish and Ohio State. There was one time the guy took I think it was wide receiver, running back. He good tackle, went out of bounds, and he went up to kind of do the fist pump, like I'm excited, and almost hit the guy in the face, and that would have cost him 15 yards, and it was third down. I'm like, it's stupid stuff like that ends up costing a team if they would have thrown the flag. Now, thankfully, they didn't.
They didn't. So go ahead and celebrate.
But all I'm saying is try to play as clean of a game as possible.
Yeah.
Just so you don't even get the refs as much involved as you really even have to. And if you're going to tackle Mahomes, get him waist down because don't touch his head.
I wouldn't say that. I would say just make the first one count. If you're going to get that penalty, knock him out.
Wow. Okay. Now, obviously, they talk about Mahomes and his ankle or whatever it is every game. He's always struggling on it. but it never seems to bother him, so I would factor that completely out. I mean,
they'll be fine. I'm gonna take Bills going to the Super Bowl. Who you taking?
No, I'm going with the Bills for sure. I think they go in. It's going to be a tough environment. I think it's going to be close. It might be a field goal that brings it to a win, but I do think, and neither team has to factor in the weather because they both play in stupid states with stupid weather. So it's probably going to be cold. Might be -5 degrees out there, but it's not going to bother either team. So I don't think they even need to worry about that.
All right. Well, let's move on. So that's the AFC side that we discussed. Now over here on the NFC side, we're about to be having the Eagles and the Commanders taking on each other. Let's first talk about... I want to talk about that Commanders versus Lions game.
Yep.
I mean, that was rough. Now, here's the thing. That's the question that everyone's been asking leading up to the end of the season with seeing that injury report with the Lions. Would they be able to have that defense show up in the playoffs and still act like the Lions defense? Obviously, it turned most of the games that they won into shootouts. Mm-hmm. This game had to have been a shootout, and this time around, McDaniels won. Just Daniels. Jaden Daniels won the shootout. I mean, he was the better. They were the better offense today. Now, a couple things though. Those offensive and defensive coordinators for the Lions, for the past week, have been interviewing for different jobs. One of them just released today. I think Ben Johnson is his name. He's going to the Bears.
Yep.
The other dude, I forget his name. He's possibly going over to the Jets. Both of them being head coaches elsewhere. Mm-hmm. How much does that First of all, I don't like that. Mm-hmm. How you can be in the playoffs and your offense coordinator, it's already becoming public knowledge. They're not going to be around next year.
Yeah.
Beside the fact that obviously there could be conspiracies. Well, maybe they just didn't care and so they called plays differently and that's why besides all that crap, what about the impact on the players of seeing that, okay, well, we had a phenomenal, historical year for the Lions, especially their offense with Ben Johnson.
That's right.
Doing crazy stuff. How much does that play a factor when the game rolls around of that example or that play, for example, of St. Brown tripping on that route and then Jared Goff turning it over? Whoa. Obviously, we don't know. We'll never know. Who's to say that St. Brown didn't prep a little bit of the same because he saw some news headline, his offense coordinator that's been so successful getting him the ball, it's been so successful for his career, got him a new fat contract with the type of play that he's being able to produce every week? Maybe he had a little hitch. Maybe he had a little hitch in the preparation. Maybe when that play rolls around, he's thinking, this ball's coming to me. With Ben Johnson not here sticking up for him anymore, if I drop this ball, that could be a little bit different of an outcome than what I was used to initially. I know I'm taking it a stretch, but that's some of the things that is a possibility when you have this, the opportunity to be able to talk to these coaches and bring them to other teams while they're still in the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, your hope is that players and coaches act like professionals and go out and do their job.
Okay, but like a professional. There's still a human nature that people cannot ignore.
I understand. But here's the easiest way to solve this problem. The day after the Super Bowl, you can start acquiring for coaches.
Yeah, and that's what it should be.
NFL needs to adjust it. Everybody would agree with that except for the teams themselves. But all the fans, all the players, probably even all the other coaches would probably agree, hey, I don't even want to be interviewing when I'm trying to prepare. I want a head coaching job, so I understand.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to prepare for a playoff game that's going to potentially get us to the Super Bowl.
Well, that's the Commanders. The Commanders' offensive and defensive, I don't know about their defensive one, but Kingsbury or whatever, their offensive coordinator, he's going to be on the open market for head coaching jobs next year, and he said, I am not taking any interviews, I'm not talking to anybody until we are out of the playoffs.
Yep. So I guess the coaches could make that decision, but again, you do risk the opportunity
of losing
now
that.
I'm not going to be able to get it because I chose to make this decision. I think it's the respectful, moral decision for your team, but also, can you pass up a head coaching job when you dreamed about that your entire life? It's tough. I get it, but NFL just needs to change the rule. It's very simple. February 11th or whatever it is, whatever the day after the Super Bowl is, you can start interviewing for coaches.
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad for Dan Campbell up there, man, because you could tell. I don't know if you watched the post game conference or whatever, but he was feeling it. He was in his feels, and he was like, "Man, I didn't get him ready for this week." And it's like, okay, if you're amounting what happened to these just small things, and that's what he said in it. He was like, "Man, it's a bunch of little things that all came together to cause us to lose. Just a bunch of these little things." And that's what I'm talking about. When there's that distraction in the background, that's what can cause a lot of little things. Like, the professionalism is you still show up to practice. Right. You still, you're running the routes when you're going against skeletons. Yeah. You're obviously lining. You remember the play properly. Yeah. But when the ball is coming your direction on that play, what's the difference between you making a smooth, conscious catch and a Mark Andrews, falling backwards and it tumbling across your legs and it drops out? It's the small mental things, man. Yep. And them interviewing, like, I feel bad for Campbell because it's like he gave these coaches. I remember back on Hard Knocks, whenever at least their defensive coordinator was around. Now Ben Johnson, he's been there for a little bit too, and what he's been doing on the offensive end has been amazing this year. So the amount of commitment that team is giving to him, for him to, before the season's even over, be already looking at another job and what he can do elsewhere. It's like, I would feel, if I was the head coach, a little bit betrayed. It's like, I understand, when the offseason comes, yeah, you do what's best for you and your career. But while we're all still supposed to be committed and going towards this goal, we should be fully 100% committed to this, focused on this, no outside noise, nothing outside the locker room, 100% all in. And there's no way you can say that Ben Johnson and their defensive coordinator were 100% all in if they're already interviewing for other jobs.
Yeah, it's tough to say that, for sure. Yeah. And we've talked about the Lions before. When you get that many people that are injured on your team,
it's tough.
It's really tough. Yeah. And they reminded me, and they kind of got forced to do this, but they reminded me a lot. The Bengals used to be like this. The Colts were definitely like this. Your goal was just to outscore the other team.
Yeah,
as obvious as that sounds, but you just have to score more than they do because your defense is not up to speed and probably can't stop them. And the Commanders just found ways to score. And every time the Lions would respond, Commanders, they responded, right away. There wasn't even, it didn't even look like there was much effort involved. I'm sure there was, but it didn't look like it was. And can it translate to the next game? And that's really the tough piece.
Yeah, because they're going up to Philly to take on a very tough Eagles squad who... Yeah. That Rams game was really good.
It was.
And for a second there, we were all looking around okay, the Rams ain't going to be around for much longer. And they kind of fought back, and they tried to make it a heck of a game. Saquon Barkley, though, man, I think he had over 200 yards rushing in that game. He is a specimen. And with the Eagles' offensive line, what can you do? I remember one specific play when I think it was the second, and maybe it was in the fourth quarter. It was Saquon Barkley's second touchdown where he broke loose, ran it for 78 yards or something like that. And I remember the cut back to Jalen Hurts, where Jalen Hurts is just sitting there smiling, cheesing, just watching him. Jalen, I don't know if you know who this is. Jalen Hurts looks so much like Shamar Moore. You know who Shamar Moore is? Mm-hmm. He's the dude that was in Criminal Minds. He was in, if you watched Sonic the Hedgehog, he was in that. I think he was in the second one with Knuckles. He was a fake husband or whatever. Anyways, he looks just like Shamar Moore. And Shamar Moore always got this smooth face because he's like an older ladies man almost. This is always his character type. And Jalen Hurts looked just like him. He's like, yeah, okay. I ain't got to do much in this game. I just hand it to Saquon. Go ahead.
No, but I give it to the Rams. They actually played a really good game.
They did.
And they had a drive at the end of the game that could have won the game for them. So I think they only lost by 2. And Stafford was trying to get them into field goal range. And some errant passes, but, I mean, he was 20 yards away from
Matthew
potentially
Stafford,
winning that game.
He's like a Aaron Rodgers, man. Like, he's only getting more intelligent with his play. Now, the physical attributes, whether he can still launch at 60, 70 yards like he could with the Lions, whether the accuracy is entirely there, who knows? But you can tell his knowledge for the game is just continuing to increase, and he's looking a little bit smoother on knowing where to put the ball and having faith in whatever wide receiver. Going to, like Puka Nacua, for example, is like the go-to person when you need a big play, you need to get some yards. I mean, you can't count out the Rams. After Aaron Donald left, different squad entirely. Yeah. And maybe in a game like this, that's what they're missing is an Aaron Donald. But
well, the fact that they started, I think, 1-4, and everybody counted them out for the entire season, and then they ended up going on a 9-game winning streak.
Yeah.
I mean, that got them into the playoffs, and they played a really good team, but they played them well. That gives them, I think, a little bit of hope for next year. We'll see what pieces they adjust, what they do differently, but much better game than I think most people expected.
Yeah. And so, I mean, now that leads us to the conference rivals over there in the NFC. So, Commanders versus the Eagles. It's going to be a good game.
I hope so.
I was really thinking the Eagles would be the ones to take it all the way, but I didn't anticipate the Lions losing to the Commanders the way they did. I thought it would be the Lions versus the Eagles. Now, when you take the Lions into consideration going up against the Eagles, a little bit different. Maybe it would have turned out the same, especially if their coordinators are interviewing for jobs the week before. But the Eagles versus the Commanders, I haven't given it much thought. And I would say the Commanders' defense is slept on. Now, can they contain a Saquon Barkley? That has yet to be determined. I didn't even watch any of their regular season games, so I don't really know how the matchup goes. Me watching this playoff game will be like the first time seeing this matchup. But I will say Jaden Daniels looks like a veteran quarterback out there. And if there is going to be a team that can do pretty solid against the Eagles defense, it could be those Washington Commanders with Terry McLaurin, with Brian Robinson at running back, with Jaden Daniels running the ball, having to be a threat.
My only thing would say that Daniels, to me, he comes across as somebody that has, it's almost like he has no fear because he doesn't even know what to fear. He's just going out and he's going to fling the ball and he's going to play his game, and we'll see how it plays out. I mean,
well, you know his secret, right? What? It's the new age of quarterbacks, man. What his secret is, and in his game prep, when he's going through his plays and stuff like that, he's doing it all through virtual reality. And he plays back the plays at 1.75 speed. So everything's going a little bit faster in virtual reality. And he's still trying to make his reads, still doing everything he needs to do, but just at a faster pace than what reality is.
Interesting. I wonder if that...
New wave, man.
Yeah, we'll see if that catches on. That'd be interesting.
New wave. Very off topic. I only want to talk about it for a second, but did you also see your boy Richardson for the Colts is now starting to train with Josh Allen's trainer, and they implement some type of different red dot technology or something like that. They do some somewhat revolutionary things as far as training.
Interesting.
But he's meeting up with him. He's trying to take this offseason a little bit more serious.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll see about that.
Yeah.
But back to the Eagles Commanders.
Who do you got? Call it right now.
I can't go against the Eagles, man. If we're talking the script that NFL's put out, right? The script that they sent out to the player union saying, hey, you're going to be losing this game, you're going to be winning this game, you're making it this far, you're going to stop first round. If it's according to that script, I think the best storyline, I'll start with this, which I don't think is going to happen because it's too predictable, is the Chiefs win over here. You got the veteran quarterbacks, been there, going for the third time against the rookie going in, trying to get it for the first. It's never been done before, a rookie quarterback. I think that's too predictable, so I have to go the other way on both sides. I'm going Bills finally getting past the Chiefs hump, which is also a great storyline, versus the Eagles. Saquon Barkley shoves it to his old team, the Giants, saying, I'm done with these 2-12 teams. I'm making it to the Super Bowl. I'm going to get me a ring.
Yep. No, I have to agree with you. I mean, I hope both games I do expect to be good games. I do expect to be well coached, well pieced together. I think they both come down again to maybe a field goal or something like that. But I do think the Eagles just have a step up. They've got the veterans. They got
Saquon Barkley. I'm telling you, he's the difference.
Yep. If they can figure out a way to stop him, though, then that's the question. I mean, that could be the difference.
Only team I've seen do it is the Steelers. And
enough with the Steelers.
And when we stopped them, it's because we gave up over 200 yards to the wide receivers.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. You got to pick your poison on that one. But so we got Bills. We're both picking Bills, Eagles.
All right. So then, Bills, Eagles, who do you got?
I'm going to go Bills.
Ooh.
I know it's a tough one, but I think the Bills, I was saying Lions, this was their year. I've said it all season pretty much. I thought the Lions were going to pull it off. They just had too many injuries, there just wasn't enough there to keep them going. I think the Bills have it, and again, I expect the Super Bowl to be a really good game, but I would think the Bills would pull that one off.
Okay. You see the same thing that I said about Lamar Jackson getting that fire from losing to the Bills. The same thing that Josh Allen got, that fire from losing to the Chiefs. Once he passes this hurdle, what's the hurdle in front of him? I'll tell you what that hurdle is going to be in front of him. Because Jalen Hurts, if you remember, went to the Super Bowl to take on the Chiefs.
He did.
And lost.
He did.
And he has that fire built up.
Yeah.
So Lamar Jackson has the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen has the Chiefs. But Jalen Hurts just has the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to get past that hurdle. I think Saquon Barkley is going to have an above average game. I don't think he's going to get 200 yards like he did against the Rams, but maybe 110, 120 yards, one touchdown. But I think Jalen Hurts.
Super Bowl MVP, I mean?
I don't know. It could be anybody. But I think Jalen Hurts is going to have like it'll be a kind of a somewhat statistical quiet night, probably like 180 yards, 1-2 touchdowns, but it'll be a close game. And it'll be on like that last drive when Jalen Hurts fakes it to Saquon Barkley, runs it for like 20 yards, gets him in the field goal range, kick field goal to win the game. Like it'll be a Jalen Hurts moment.
Right. Okay.
So I'm taking the Eagles over the Bills.
All right. Sounds good. Be a good game.
All right. Let us know what you think these is going to turn out in these playoffs. I think my prediction's the most accurate. We already told you the scripted one, but maybe there's something people out there are seeing that we're not. So go ahead and like this video if you enjoyed it. Go ahead and comment what you thought about anything that we talked about. Go ahead and share this video with anyone who may be interested in sports, interested in football, college, or NFL. And finally, give us a sub. Every sub counts, and that's the way to be able to catch all the content that we release. Anything else?
That's it.
All right. That's all I got for y'all. Peace out.